Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Um, just I'm just getting started back from maternity leave for those of you who are regulars, so bear with me if I forget anything. Um, Today we have Peg with us to discuss fall container gardens, which is always a fun topic as we look forward to the fall season. So I'm just going to go over a few notes for you all while we wait for everybody to get logged in, and then I will hand things over to Peg so that she can get started. For anyone who is new, welcome. We are so glad to have you. Just a quick reminder, since we do have people who join us from across the country, this is all geared towards gardening zone about 7 in the Northern Virginia area. If you're from another region, we are so glad to have you. Just keep in mind that some of these plants will perform a bit differently where you are. For anybody who has questions during the program, you can type those questions into the Q&A box. I'll be monitoring that and sharing those questions with Peg when she takes questions. If you have any issues, I'll go ahead and open up the chat as well. So you all are welcome to send chats, and I'll be monitoring that during the webinar as well. We are recording today, and tomorrow you can look forward to an email with a link to the recording, as well as a list of plants that Peg discusses and a coupon for use at our store. So that should be about it for me. Peg, if I've forgotten anything, let me know. Quick introduction of Peg, who I know for most of you all needs no introduction, but for those of you who haven't met her, Peg works at our Fair Oak store. She's been doing classes with us for many, many years and is knowledgeable in a wide range of topics. Container gardens is one of her great specialties, so I always love her container gardens class. Peg, I will let you get started.
Thank you, Sally, and welcome back. Okay, yes, this program today is all about container gardens, and it's for fall interest because fall is such an exciting time. I think it certainly rivals springtime for the beauty and the welcomeness of it. And I've also included plants that will go into winter and provide interest for us also. Before we begin, because this is a learning and a teaching arena, I have something that I need to share. I was a farmer's daughter. I've been in the sunshine all my life, not one that lays out in the sun and worshiped it, but in the sunshine. And because of that, I've had some issues. And last week, I had quite an incision here for a melanoma on my cheek. So forgive the sunglasses. Believe me, you don't want to see what's behind it right now. And so a lot of the pictures today will be used to keep you from having to look at me because I know it's not so funny. I do want to stress that if you do not have a good dermatologist or you don't go often, to find one or go to one and get checked frequently, because this is something that certainly can be taken care of if you don't let it go too long. And so I apologize for the sunglasses. Hopefully you won't have to bear with that too much. But we also have a couple of short videos that I did in my garden. I use my own garden and have for almost 50 years because it's been such a learning curve for me. Yes, I enjoy it, but the major thing is I learned to use some of those staples that I know are very dependable, but I always try something different, particularly something new, so that if I get really excited about it, I can share it with you. We only learn a tiny amount in a long life. And it's been my pleasure to share that and to learn from all of you and from other people. So let's begin, Danny. And the first picture that we have coming up here is taken just before I had this surgery on my cheek. And it is primarily of the garden before I began to work with it very much. I'm going to talk to you more today about color and texture and contrast within the plant material itself. And here you'll get the end of the season where it may not look as great as it did 6 weeks ago, but a lot of these plants were still quite satisfactory. And so I left them. And the hummingbirds have not gone yet, and they love these. This area is an area that I see from my front porch. It is a large grouping of large containers, and I enjoy it very much. I love the pollinators, the butterflies, the bees, and particularly the hummingbirds. And so I wanted to leave the containers and change those up later. But I want, as we go through this show, again, as I say, to see the contrasts and the textures. Okay, so let's try the videos, Danny, and hopefully they're short little videos, and we'll see how they do. Okay. Go. I'm changing up the containers for interest for fall and going into winter. Coral bells are fantastic, and there's so many color tones there. A little bit of the annuals from summer will come out and be replaced with beautiful pansies, and go with the kale that goes through the winter and then blooms in the spring. Others of those beautiful heuchera here, Lysimachia trailing out of here. Again, the pepper replaced with pansies. And the kale, oh my, the kale goes through the winter so well. And look at the beautiful contrast that we have here. Another coral bells and ascot rainbow, which is gorgeous. It's so exciting to change up the summer annuals into things that are interesting in the fall and going into the winter. And if we start down here, kale is very hardy, and they're different colors in the leaves. They go through winter bloom in the spring. I've got the lantana, which is still beautiful. I'm leaving it, but I'm adding the wonderful peppers that say fall. I've got the carex, which combines well again with the kale, and more of the peppers. And I've left a few of the containers that look good, and I'll take them out when they go down and replace them with pansies and kale. Okay, come back to me for a minute. Okay, well, that went fairly well, and we had fun doing those. But let me talk to you just for a second about if you still have containers that are attractive and you want to leave those. It's wonderful if you can put in extra containers and have some of these beautiful things growing now and create that real fall look, because they'll take you a lot of these things right into Thanksgiving, depending upon the frost situation. Okay, talking about frost. If we have a light frost predicted, and sometimes you can, even the first part of October, you can, if those summer annuals are still looking good, and a lot of times they are, petunias particularly, will take a light frost and still be beautiful. There is a product on the market, which I hope most of you know about, and that is this lovely, it's called a Harvest Guard, is one of the ones that we carry here, but there are several brands, and it's frequently referred to as a floating row cover. I use it in the spring, and I use it in the fall. Use it for so many things. But if a light frost is predicted and you still have summer annuals that look good and you want to save them, you can use this frost cloth. Now, what you need to do, if I can manage to do this, okay, is you want to put it loosely over your container, and you either tie it on with a string or take it all the way down and put side pins in it. Now, that can stay on if you're going to have some cool weather for 2 or 3 days, because sometimes if you get those things through that first light frost, they may last for weeks after that. We never know. Okay. So this is an investment for me. I really do enjoy having and using this frost cloth for many, many purposes. Okay, before we go into the rest of this program, I mentioned to you that we are really, really talking about texture and color changes within the plant material itself. And I have wonderful examples up here, for instance. When it comes to the kale and cabbage, I want to highly, highly recommend the kale for growing in containers, particularly those that you want to go through the winter. The cabbage is not as winter hardy, but I have had no problems getting the red boar kale and this, oh, this is the dinosaur kale. But look at the colors there. One is a darker color and one is that beautiful, beautiful tone of gray green. But then we have another beautiful kale. And look at the contrast of texture in that. So if you take those and if you've got a good sized container and you put in some of these things that just simply say, well, let's say the pansies, okay? Pansies. And I love to use the pansies, but I love to use the violas also. The violas will trail beautifully and they're almost hardier than the pansies. Pansies are about the only thing that you're going to get color through almost all the winter. Yes, if we have a severe winter, they're going to slack off with their bloom, but they will pick back up as soon as the weather begins to warm up a little bit. And so that is the color in the flowers that will go through the winter. Now we have other things that will be beautiful for fall, but let's take a look at a year or two ago in my own garden with some of the things and how I have used them. Okay, Danny, let's go back to the pictures, honey. Okay, this is that same grouping of containers. And it's located there because it's number one, it's, I won't say it's full sun, but it's at least 7+ hours of direct noonday sun. And these are the plants that really take it. You can see that I have the established kale there. And I also have, I've got to take these glasses off for the moment because I can't see. Okay. They're not fun inside. There's a dark, I really do love the euphorbias. And toward the front of this, there's a dark leaf euphorbia, but I particularly like the ascot rainbow, which I think I've got a picture in here somewhere. But look at the contrast of textures that you've got here. And I've also added some fun things. I've always did this with my children, my grandchildren, and now my great-grandchildren. And they had such fun helping to decorate this with some of the things that gave them a lot of pleasure. And they loved putting out the little gourds and things. Here we go. Chrysanthemums. Mums say fall. And when you purchase them in the annual section, I justify the cost of that as an inexpensive flower arrangement. There's early flowering, mid-season flowering, and late season flowering. And you can have a long period of bloom from chrysanthemums by changing them out if you choose to do so. Are they hardy? Maybe yes, maybe no. A lot depends upon the severity of the winter because most of them are hybrids, okay? But certainly you can use them to great effect. And if you got a place to plant them out in the garden, take them out, either replace them with pansies or a later blooming chrysanthemum. I love to use the gourds. I love to stack them. And after Thanksgiving, if you chose to, you could spray them silver and gold and platinum and all those things and continue to use them. But take a look at this and think about the color in flowers, but also the color within the plants themselves. Okay, here we go. There's that beautiful kale that is so frilly and contrasts beautifully. Now you're only seeing the peak of a juniper that has been in a container on that step area going up, change of grade, for several years in the same container. Juniper are incredible in containers. I love them. Okay, let's go on, honey. Okay, another picture of that same area. Okay. Now, this is another little bit of decor there because there is a lovely bench you can sit on. And you're seeing now still a combination of the summer annuals, the fall annuals, and some of those things will be replaced with pansies. So there's the mums. And if you choose to, you can even overwinter some of these things because they're so beautiful. The mesas, which is the variegated trailer there, I overwinter that a lot. And the Tratus Cantor, which is the variegated vining one on the other side. And I can't be without peppers because peppers say fall. They will not go through the winter, but they are beautiful in the fall. Okay. Another, just a look at that same general area and how you can use those pumpkins. Okay, this is important because I love bulbs also, and they play a major role in the springtime because we're so anxious for color. And there are a lot of early blooming ones. Here again, like the mums, they're early, mid, and late season ones, which is fantastic. Now, I did not do this a couple of weeks ago when we did those little quick videos, and I went ahead and put some of these things in for the fall, particularly, and winter. I will replace those annuals when they get tired or when frost takes them, and I will repot. And when I do, let's go, I think, to the next. Yes, this is it. Okay, I a little confined today with what I can lift, etc. And so I didn't bring the container up to show you exactly how I do it. But in these larger containers, I put a piece of landscape fabric in the bottom to cover the drainage holes. And you must have drainage holes. We cut pieces that are 1 yard. That makes it easy for those people who want to use this because it certainly is more effective and long lasting than anything else that you can put in there. What does that landscape fabric do? It kind of keeps the little buggies from going up in it from the bottom, and it keeps the soil inside also. I always use it. And then I begin to fill that container with very good potting mix. Merrifield Garden Center has a very good potting mix. But I like to, and it has excellent drainage. It's a good product. But I am really, really loving, and it's much more expensive, the Fox, what is it, Fox Farm. Yes, which I'll show you when we come back. Let me hang with this a minute. Because it has a lot of nutrients in it. Okay. This is important. I will fill that if I'm putting bulbs in there. I will fill that with several inches of this good potting soil and then stage my bulbs. And then I will fill in more. And when I fill in more, I will use however big the container is, let's say a handful or whatever, of the Plantone, which is all organic, slow release fertilizer, and mix it into that soil as I add to it. And then begin to plant my plants. Always holding that potting soil down from the top of the rim by at least an inch so that it's easy to water. It's very difficult to water a plant that has the potting soil going all the way to the top. Okay. If you are, as I did, with a lot of the summer annuals recently that I took all of them out and replaced them with the kale and the pansies and the peppers, I actually took out about a third, maybe a half of that soil. And then I totally loosened up the rest of that soil. And then I added Fox Farm, which has high nutrients in it. You could use the Merrifield also. You don't have to throw away all of your soil that you've used in the past. You can reuse it. It needs to be loosened. Okay, let's come back to me for a minute. Oh, let me get these sunglasses. Oh, we don't need to do that. Sorry. I can't see with them on. So okay. All right. I want to show you this because it's very important. Okay. This is a wonderful product. Yes, it's more expensive, but it's well worth it. And a lot of times when I am doing my containers, I'll mix half of the Merrifield and then use half of this because has additional nutrients in it. And it is all organic, okay? When it says that it has, what all does it have? Earthworms castings, different types of guano, but it also has fish things in it too. I love that product. All right, as far as fertilization is concerned for the plants that you're doing in the fall and in the winter, you don't want to feed those plants heavily because you don't want to push a lot of fresh growth right now that's not going to be hardy and will not be happy when the weather is really cold. And so these slow release organic fertilizers are absolutely perfect. Now you've got the nutrients that are here in this Fox Farm, and you've got Plantone, which is all natural and follow the directions according to the size of the pot. Mix thoroughly into that soil. Slow release, so it's not pushing that plant really hard. And rather than using the Blossom Booster, which pushes hard, I go to, yes, more expensive, but it really works. This is all organic. It's a seaweed fertilizer. Mix it according to the directions. And when you have watered those plants thoroughly, then mix this in a watering pot and put in a quart or two into each container. Do that a couple of times and you've got it for the winter. Don't fertilize anymore after that, okay? Because
Peg, is that fertilizer? Is that
yes,
Neptune's Harvest?
yes,
Okay, thank you.
it's Neptune Harvest. And there's
Okay.
a couple of different types. They're all organic and they're fantastic. You know, they told us that the Indian people really taught our colonists to use fish to fertilize. Well, they knew what they were doing, for pity's sake. You know, we need to take that and run with it. Let's go back and see what we've got now on the rest of this pictures of okay. And Sally, you can remind me if I need to add something, okay? This
Will do.
this is a picture taken from last year when I was working with those plants. And Carex. There are a lot of varieties of Carex out there, and they will go through the winter. This is a quite large one, something Falls. I can't remember the first name, but they're smaller ones too, and they are outstanding. But look at the contrast. And I actually put up a couple of pots again for contrast of the lamb's ear and also the sedum autumn joy, which was just fantastic. I love the all of these plants combined together. And then the next one, I think it's a close-up of the same things. Okay, and let's go on to the next one. Just an overview of what it looks like lately. I'm not sure how that one got in there, but anyway, let's go to the next one. Okay, those are all sun plants, and they need at least 6+ hours of sun per day. And don't worry about the chrysanthemums on that sun thing. Those chrysanthemums already have all their buds, whether they're tight or already open or somewhere in between. If you use them in the shade, it is not going to matter because they're still going to do their thing. So when you come in and you buy these things, whether it's the celosia or the peppers, or you can go ahead and use those even in heavy shade because they're going to do their thing regardless, okay? Other than that, for the things you want to overwinter, you have to think about that. Now, generally speaking, the heuchera or coral bells or heucherella, any of those things that are beautiful in foliage and lots of different colors in that foliage, don't usually like the hottest sun. If you've got really hot sun, that's not the best thing to reach for. These are on the back side of that grouping of containers, and so they don't get all of that hot air. They get some, but not all. They will also do in part shade. So if you've got a part shade thing going through the winter, this is an ideal plant to use. And the violas and the pansies likewise will do well in sun or in part shade. So you got it made with that, okay? Next one. Okay, here again, contrasts. You can just see the tiny bit of the brighter colors contrasting with that carex is the ascot rainbow, which I absolutely love. But here again, in the plant material itself, look at the color that you've got there. Next. There is the Euphorbia ascot rainbow again. Absolutely beautiful, and it winters beautifully. And in the spring, it blooms. It is a perennial. But look how nicely it plays with the carex that is beneath it, okay? Love to use these. I see, because I've got several Facebook things on my computer, and so I see what a lot of other people are doing. I like to know what they're doing, okay? And many of them have these huge, beautiful baskets of maybe all petunias or all vinca or all something. And I love that. But I like to mix my containers. I like the contrasts. The nice thing is that you can use containers with contrast and complement them with containers that contain only one thing. For instance, New Guinea impatiens, or any of the annuals, the petunias, the violas, and all of that. So think about that, that you don't have to have every basket that is exactly the same. Now let's talk a little bit about celosia, because this is kind of fun. Celosia says fall to me, and these fall ones are absolutely gorgeous. If you have a frost predicted and you're not going to protect it, okay, you can go out and cut long stems of this celosia because it's not going to winter, okay? First frost is going to get it. You can strip off all those leaves, put 4 or 5 in a bunch with a rubber band around it, hang it from a coat hanger in a warm place, and they dry beautifully. At the very end, I think I've got a picture that will show you that. Okay, and in the next picture, whoa, do I love coleus. And maybe you have coleus in the garden right now. It's a great time to snip cuttings of these. Again, taking a nice long piece, 6 to 8 inches at least long, stripping off a lot of the leaves, and they grow beautifully in water. But look at the opportunity that you have with some of these plants to coordinate the colors. I love the combination of this coleus with that beautiful petunia tucking out at the bottom. Now, petunias, Calabricoa, are fantastic in the summer and in the spring and in the fall because petunias will take light frost. And so they will last for a long time. But when we're talking about color in plants, complemented, perhaps, if you've got it, with color in flowers, it's pretty exciting. And the next one, Danny, again, another type of celosia. Okay, I know that ivy can be an issue. I have some issues, believe me. So I can appreciate that. But ivy in a container is another ballgame. And I do use ivy in containers because it can be beautiful, very cold hardy, goes all through the winter. Okay, Danny? Just some other casual things, just for decor. Sedum angelonia goes through the winter well. And there are other things in here. There's a pepper in there. When that pepper goes, take it out and replace it with a pansy. Or it gives it more room for the pansies you've already got in there to grow. And I tucked those little gourds into a little topiary thing, which I really do enjoy that, you know. Okay. Again, this is at my own house and pleasing those little great granddaughters, great grandson too. We did a lot of that just off my front porch. Now, this is the front porch that I sit on to get to enjoy all those containers that are up front. Okay. Next one, please. Okay, a more elaborate situation than mine. This was where we did actually a fairly close by neighbor, so to speak, with a lot of the decor with containers grown there, but in the ground also. So you want to enjoy the fall season. You want to think about the winter time and what it's going to be like also. I think there's another picture of this one. Okay. Yeah, same one. Okay. Decorated for fall, but it also has some beautiful containers. And in the very large containers, you can always use an ornamental grass in there. Yes, it may no longer be green, but brown is beautiful for fall and it goes through the winter quite well too. This is a smaller townhouse area using the mums. When the mums are finished, you can take those away and you've still got those beautiful containers up front. There's ivy used in this. There's a small grass used in it. When the mums are finished, then you can put more pansies in, okay? The next one. Okay, I really want to talk about plants, particularly in containers, and going through the year, going through the winter. This is a very big container and it has a Japanese maple in it that has been in it since it was a very young plant, okay? And it has done really quite well. It's sitting atop a tree that I unfortunately lost and was cut off in this container sitting on top of it. Yes, you have to be careful with the watering when you've got a tree that's expensive as one of these, but it grew from a little guy. Certainly, evergreens are also important in the wintertime. This is not an evergreen, but the structure of that Japanese maple also has a lot of emphasis in the wintertime. Some of my absolute favorite evergreens to use in containers through the winter are number one, juniper. The juniper that you may or may not have seen in earlier pictures is a cascading one, and it has been in that pot for at least 5 years. And it's thriving. It requires very little, and it's not water hungry either, which is wonderful. This one is underplanted with the violas and the pansies, and it goes through winter beautifully. Now, do I get out there and water in the wintertime? I don't. If we had a really, really dry winter or no snow, maybe I might have to, but I might turn my water off out there. And I don't water in the wintertime, and I've never had a problem with that, okay? I don't know what your experience may be, but I've never had a problem with watering in the dead of winter, okay? Before we leave, oh, my favorites, I was going to tell you boxwood. Boxwood winters really, really well. The junipers winter really well. But there's several others out there that winter well too. And a lot of times that's a plus. Maybe you don't have a big space. Maybe you need some evergreens to go along with all of those other beautiful plants. Let's go to the next one. Okay, here is one that's ready for the winter time, and it is where it gets a fair amount of shade. The girl or coral bells. The grass is an chorus, and there is an evergreen fern in here along with the pansies. Talking about the containers themselves that go through the winter, I do a lot of planting in well-fired clay containers, okay? Terracotta. Mexican terracotta will not winter. If they are beautiful, and I have some, I love the contrasts of those, but they have to go in the wintertime or they will break. They're not well fired. Beautiful, but not well fired. So if you have those, you want to empty them out and store them. The ceramics, for the most part, I'm going to knock on some wood right now. I have not had one of my good ceramics break, and I do not take them in the wintertime. Never, ever leave them sitting on bare soil. They will probably, excuse me, probably break under those conditions. If you have saucers under your containers in the summertime, which I do for a lot of my plants, no, I don't worry about mosquitoes in those saucers because that in the heat gets absorbed too fast for the mosquitoes to form. I take those saucers away in the wintertime because they will cause your pots to break. Saucers are wonderful in the summer, but not in the winter, okay? Now, with the terracottas concerned, well fired. I lose one now and then. I really do. You will. But I absolutely love it. And you can mix terracotta with just about any other type, and it's fantastic, okay? So, of course, concrete usually goes through fine. But as I said, you don't want to leave these containers sitting on bare ground. They are fine on tiles or stone even. It doesn't hold water. I learned the hard way that you don't ever sit a container directly on your deck. You always want it to be raised off that deck because it is not good for the deck, believe me. Okay, let's continue, Danny, and see what we got coming up. Just a couple of quick ideas. Just a lot of pansies with a little kale and celosia grass and lysomachia coming out of it. Here's another one with that beautiful red boar. Oh my gosh, I love that plant. And it really blooms beautifully, beautifully in the springtime. And you want to leave it in until it has the opportunity to do that. And the next one, okay. You can even arrange things in the fall. I couldn't resist doing this. Beautiful, beautiful mums around the bottom. I love the cannas. I have a lot of cannas in my garden, and I overwinter these, plus the alocasia, which I absolutely love too, the elephant ear, that are not hardy in our area. As soon as frost is predicted, I will cut those back and I will place bags of mulch. I use Virginia Fines. I place 2 or 3 of those around on top of them. Don't open them, okay? It's much better cold wise to leave the bags intact. And then I put and pinned down with those side pins. I put landscape fabric over that. And I have been very lucky to get all those things through the winter. And that for me is a joy because the longer you can get them to last, the bigger they get. But I love the cannas. A lot of times they'll go through the winter fine on their own. The colocasia will not. But I cover all of them anyway. And then I've used some ornamental grasses. So enjoy these things and inside as well as outside, okay? Now, the joy of these babies, you always hear me say, please, please include the young because there are tomorrow. And this is Clara. Clara is 6 now. And oh my goodness, she's fantastic in the garden. She and Lydia, and now little baby Elias, who's going to be 3 coming up, um, absolutely love the garden. And they're studying so much about the insects that they even are coming up with the botanical names of some of these things, which I don't even know, okay, which is wonderful. Here she's absolutely helping me create this container. And there's, I think, one more picture. Oh, just love it. And I love working with them. And they're coming in a couple of days. So we'll be doing up some containers and picking some lettuce and taking care of all that stuff. So by all means, include those young ones. Borrow some if you have to. Okay. Let's go to the last one. I think this is. Okay. Another fun thing of fall, and this is for another program down the road, and that's dried flower arrangements, which I love to use in the fall and early and winter. And there is in this a lot of the celosia, the darker, the reds and the bronze colors that you see in there are celosia. That, as I said, you take away the leaves, bundle them, put a rubber band around them, maybe a paper clip to hang them on a hanger, and it's amazing how well they dry. But there are a lot of other things in here too. There's the yarrow that I cut from that in the summertime, but we're going to talk about that another time. But this is another good way to enjoy your garden by bringing it inside. Okay. Well, Sally, I think I've left a little room if you all can tolerate the sunglasses.
We can definitely tolerate them, Peg. Um, Okay, so we have plenty of questions that have come in. Everybody, please feel free to send in your questions. We'll get to as many of them as we can. I'm going to start with the ones that are focused primarily on our container gardening topic, and then if we have any extra time, we'll move on to some of the others. First question about the kale. We have 2 questions that came in about the ornamental kale and the cabbage.
Yeah.
First is will deer eat the kale? And I realized I don't know if they do or not. Do they eat kale?
I have not had them eat the kale. And believe me, I have a lot of deer and a lot of babies, and the babies could care less. I use Bobex to spray with, and you can. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up because, boy, this is one of the most important things I could have told you. You can, with the ornamentals, you're not going to eat it. You can spray that with Bobex, okay? It has been my go-to thing for years. It smells terrible for overnight or for a day, but after that, you don't smell it again.
So they might eat the kale, but you spray it so you don't have an
I
issue.
spray a lot of times,
Okay.
I don't spray my vegetables because they're behind
Yeah.
netting, okay? And you don't want to spray those. I'm not going to guarantee because you never know about deer. It depends on how hungry they are.
They
But
may be like me and just not like kale.
before you go to another question, I need to tell you about this thuricide, okay? I think I picked up the wrong one. This is pyrethrum, and that's not the right one. Thuricide, okay? Bonide thuricide is organic. truly organic, okay? The cabbage fly, what butterfly, is all around now. We need to grow these things while it's still warm. But when it's still warm, that little butterfly will lay its eggs on here and it will no longer be attractive. And if it's in your vegetable garden, you really don't want to eat it. So on all the brassicas, all the kales and the cabbage and the broccoli and all of that sort of thing. So I do spray those with this thuringiensis, okay? You can eat it within a day afterwards. It's not a poison, okay? Truly not a poison. Don't worry about all the other butterflies because these butterflies go to a specific plant. And this is the one that is drawn, that the cabbage butterfly is drawn to, okay? Others don't go to this plant to lay their caterpillars. So you're not going to kill the monarch's caterpillars. You don't have to worry about that. But that is very important. And you might need to do that every couple of weeks until you get a frost and those butterflies are no longer around. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, the next question was still about the kale and the cabbage. So they're ornamentals, so I know we don't recommend especially eating them, especially
You
not
can,
from the
you can.
nursery. If you grew
If
them
you're
from
going to put the
seed,
money out, why?
if you could grow them from seed, would they be edible though? The question is just generally, are they edible?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I now have planted a couple of these that are very, very edible. This and kale, you could, if you remember seeing it in the grocery store, very curly. Yes,
Yes.
you can eat it. But these are used primarily and so for ornamentation because they're more expensive.
Yeah.
If you want the others, go over. We've got a huge display of vegetables and the same varieties, but they're much less expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on, we have some questions about the containers. When you're swapping out your plants from summer to fall, do you do anything to renew the soil? Do you add any compost, fertilizer?
Absolutely do. And you do not, as long as the plants that were in there are not diseased, okay? And if I were doing tomatoes, I might replace the whole thing, okay? Because I don't like to be grown in the same soil year after year. But I would replace at least a third of that each year or when I make those changes and with good potting soil. And that's when again I add the plantain. I like to do organic wherever I can. And this is an invaluable. I mean, I've used these things for years. And I like to use all organic in my soils. I know that this is much more expensive, but I like to use it wherever I can. Okay.
Perfect. All right. Next question. Okay, the containers that you're planting in, what's a good kind of average size that you recommend if you're planting these
If
containers
you
up in the
want them
fall?
to go through the winter, you don't want anything smaller than 14 inches.
Okay. So
You
you
might get away
overwinter
with a
14
12
inches is the
inch if it's
minimum.
deep, but 14 inches is safer. But a lot of
Gotcha.
mine are even bigger than that.
Okay. Okay. So 14 inches is a good starting point if you're planning to overwinter
Yes, it
anything.
is. Yes.
Okay. Alrighty. Next question. How can we keep squirrels from eating the gourds? All those pretty gourds you have.
You don't want to hear my answer to
Oh, okay.
that.
So maybe you can't really prevent it.
Oh, no, you don't want my answer to that
Got a
one.
scary dog.
Yeah, well,
Not my dog. She wouldn't care. All right, let's see here. Recommendations for a non-English ivy, non-creeping. Okay, so a spiller plant that's not English ivy or the Lysimachia.
for winter,
Yes, fall, winter. Is
not
there one?
ivy and not lysomachia. There's not a whole lot that's going to go through the winter. Most of those that you saw cascading out of those containers earlier are summer things, okay? And at the moment, I'm blanking out as to what would really be attractive other than the lysomachia and the ivy in the winter time. Okay. Well, Violas really cascade beautifully. I am sold on a lot of the violas. I love the pansies. I like a combination because when some of these containers that you saw that still have annuals in, I'll take those out and primarily fill those with just pansies and violas. But those violas will cascade way over
Oh, will they
and
really?
stay in bloom.
Okay.
And they
Awesome.
will be beautiful until you're ready to take them out next year. And of course, you want to beef up in the spring once you get past the heavy cold. Then you can fertilize a little heavier because they're going to be scot free then, going away from the heavy frosts. Uh,
Okay. Okay. That's neat. I didn't know that. Okay. Is the lamb's ear that you showed, is that an annual or a perennial?
that's a perennial.
Okay.
Yes.
Near the beginning of the program, you held up two plants that you suggested could be as hardy as pansies, lasting through most winters, and I didn't catch the name. Do you remember what those plants were? I
Well,
didn't catch them.
I held up the kale.
Okay, so maybe it was the kale, maybe in violas.
I think it was the kale.
Okay.
Yeah. And the kales are beautiful. And there's so many different varieties. This is a fantastic, isn't that beautiful? But look at the
Yeah.
color in that. You see the two kales? But I think what I did was show you the contrast, even with the dinosaur, which I sat
Yeah,
there.
the dinosaur and the red boar.
Yeah, look at this. Talk about contrast. See that?
Yeah.
It's lovely. Okay, let's go.
All right, let's see. Next question. I live in Arlington. How soon is too early to swap out summer annuals for pansies?
Go for it right now.
Now's good. When do
Yeah,
our fall annuals start arriving?
they're here.
I was gonna say I know they're here. Do they arrive? Did they like just arrive?
Oh, they've been here for at least a full week.
A week. Okay.
Now we're
Yeah.
just loaded with
So
beauty.
now's a great time.
Now is the time. And the ones that you saw that I changed out was almost 2 weeks ago.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I know the mums slowly start to appear. Let's
Yeah.
see. Okay. Uh, Next question. Do you have recommendations for blending plants together as you have in so many of these pictures? Oh, I see what she's okay. I think she's saying your containers are arranged so beautifully, the plants all just combine really nicely. It's not like you have one plant on half of the pot and one plant on the other half. Do you have any secrets for how you arrange your plants in the pot?
Well, you have to think about how that plant grows, okay? For instance, this one's going to stretch out somewhat, okay? But it's consuming a fair amount of space. This is why I use something like this in a larger pot. Now, how am I going to deal with that? Well, I'm going to put, I don't have, well, I do have violas up here, I think. Yeah, I do. Ooh, and I love this one. This one's going to cascade over. I'm going to put these in wherever I've got a tiny open space, okay? So it's going to be nestled around this. And let's see, we're going to use this in lieu of whatever. I'm just going to tuck that in where it looks nice. So I'm just pushing them together, okay? Now, before we leave that question though, I want to address one thing with, I don't know what that's called. I want to address one thing with this kale, and that is kale is like tomatoes. There are very few things that you can plant deeply, and that's good for them. But tomatoes happen to be one of those because they'll grow all along the stem. The same is the case with this kale. All righty, this one has a few pieces that don't look really good. It's very easy to just snap those bottom pieces off, okay?
And then you just plant it
And
deeper in the
then you
pot.
plant this deeply.
Oh,
You take this out of its container, just loosen those outside roots and plant it, as I said, up to its eyeballs, okay? You can do that. And particularly if you come across one that's a little leggy, this one would be as it grows. Here again, snapping off these pieces and planting it way up. Plant it deep because that's good for that plant. Plus, it looks better that way, okay? Okay.
All right. We had a question about what products we use for the deer, so I just typed that into the chat, everybody. Bobex and Liquid Fence are two that are very popular with different members.
BOBBX is my favorite.
You use Bobex.
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the rain doesn't wash it off. If we happen to have a deluge, it might, but we need some rain right now. So be careful with your watering and watch it if you're planting new things. Be sure you get your watering right. You need to absolutely soak that area around it. Not a gallon of water, that doesn't do the trick, okay? Water that plant thoroughly. I have 2 acres. I cannot water everything. Some of it just is on its own. It has to do its own thing. But there are a few of those things that I do water. Either they're very, very expensive and I don't want to lose them, or they're up close where I can do that. So, for instance, I recently planted a Japanese maple in the ground, well, in the spring, but that's still a short period of time for them to get totally established. It was in a large container and we put it into the ground. I'm very sure because I only had 0.2 inches of rain at Tyson's Corner. I think those big buildings keep the rain from coming to me. But anyway, um, I water that thoroughly at least once a week. I mean, so that I know and I check that that ground is inches deep. It's wet. Okay. So you cannot just go out. Don't go out and water a little bit every day. That is not how you are. You go out and you water deeply and then you hold off. Now, where containers are concerned, depending upon the size of them, they may need daily watering. If in the summertime when it's 90 degrees, you're going to have to water every day. I don't have to do that now. We've had some cooler temperatures and every other day or maybe longer than that. Okay.
Perfect. You placed a yellow, someone asked what the yellow flower was that you had on the table just a couple of minutes ago. I think it might have been,
Pansy.
there we go. Yeah, it was pansy. Okay.
Pansies are about the only flower that you really get through the winter with. And they will slack off when it really gets cold, but they'll pick back up again. But here again, don't over fertilize.
All right, let's see. We have two, we'll do two more questions and then I think we're going to be out of time. The first is the glazed pots, can those
Yes.
overwinter outside?
I'm not going to guarantee anything when it comes
Okay.
to pots overwintering, but I have a lot of beautiful glazed pots and I have not ever lost one. Do not leave them sitting on the ground. Elevate them slightly off the ground. I do fine with them on my slate patio. I do fine with them on my deck. Elevated off the deck, okay, for the deck's purpose. But and areas and pathways where I've got the small stones, they're fine there, but not on the ground. And again, if you've got saucers, take those saucers from under those containers. That won't work.
Perfect. Okay. And let's see. Maybe we may need to get Andy on to do another container gardening class because we get a lot of questions about containers every year. Um, Last question. In the videos, it looked like you were planting your new plants without pulling and dividing the roots. Um, is that something that you do, or do you usually divide the roots when you plant? Was that
I
just
always loosen
loosen
roots
the roots up?
to a degree. I do not destroy that root ball for these smaller annuals, okay? I may pull out more. If I were planting a tree or a shrub, I might do it a little differently. But sometimes you'll get an annual in here. And I strongly suspect that if I took this one out of its container, I'm gonna make a mess here. You guys gonna get me for this, okay? Okay, look at this. That is heavily root bound. In this case, I'm going to use my scissors or my clippers and I'm going to come in there and I'm really going to I'm going to pull all these bottom roots off and I'm going to make areas where I break up that root. Otherwise, that will continue to grow in circles. So that is very important. And it's fine. You may hear people say, don't buy that product, it's root bound. That is not a problem with this. It's going to be this way if you're going to buy a plant this big. And you have no problems with pulling some. That doesn't mean destroy that whole root ball. It means break up those roots. Okay.
Perfect. All right, Peg. Well, it's 1 o'clock on the dot, so I want to let you take a minute if you have anything you want to wrap up with. But otherwise, just a quick reminder to everybody, we will send out a copy of the recording and the list of the plants tomorrow. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email or call the store.
Well, I just want to say thank you for coming. This is container gardening is something that I totally, totally enjoy myself, even though I have a lot of room for growing things in the ground. There's just something special about growing things in containers, and I love to do that. And you can control things too that way. But I also want to thank you all for bearing with me as I'm traveling this particular journey. It's a little less than a week since I had surgery on my cheek. And I do want to remind you that even though I had a full body check in November, I had something on my arm that concerned me. And so I called the dermatologist, went in, and yes, I had an issue with that, but it was the squama, whatever, which is more serious than we often give credit for. But then I said, there's a little something bothering me on my cheek. And it's a blessing that I checked it when I did, because melanoma. And that, of course, is a word that scares all of us. But he got it all. So I'm fine. I just don't look so sweet.
Well, I hope you recover quick, Peg. And yeah, I think it's a great thank you because we all need to wear our sun hats and sunscreen and all that since we're
That's
gardeners.
right.
All
Yes.
right. Well, everybody, please have a great afternoon. Peg, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
it's good to be back. So we'll look forward to seeing you all later. Bye.
Bye bye.